and welcome to this panel discussion for International Women's Day, hosted by BFBS. And today I am joined by three women who are currently serving in the British Armed Forces. They're here today so they can talk about why they joined up, the challenges that they have faced over the course of their careers, and also really how things are looking for the future. So first of all, let me introduce them. I'm joined by Lance Sergeant Cassandra, known as Cass. She's a military personnel administrator, currently attached to the Household Cavalry. WO2 Catherine Robinson of the Royal Logistic Corps, and Lance Corporal Stacey Newman, who is an Army reservist. So all have had varied careers and are happy to talk to us today. Thanks for joining us. So let me start then with Lance Sergeant Cassandra, known as Cass. Cass, why did you join up? When did you join up, and what really attracted you to the Armed Forces?
I joined up when I was nearly 29, and basically I just wanted to travel the world because in civilian street, the majority of my got eaten up by rent costs and so forth, whereas now most of my wages, well, not during COVID, but when that's all over, traveling. So,
and you are a military personnel administrator. So what does your job involve? Talk us through it.
I basically rate the soldiers, sort out their pay, their emergency contact, and next details. So anything happened to their health and the next thing needs to be notified, they're all up to date, and make sure their pay is correct.
And it keeps you pretty busy, I imagine. The Household Cavalry, it's a busy regiment, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, I work as an unofficial secretary, my bosses, doing administrative tasks for them, and whenever they come into the office. So there's always lots to do.
Let's move on to Stacey, Lance Corporal Stacey Newman. You're an Army reservist, the only reservist on this panel. Talk us through why you decided to join as a reserve and how this all came about.
So I joined because I was due to join the Army as a 18-year-old, and I went to university instead. And then when I sort of got my civilian career in line with where I wanted it and knew it was going in the right direction, I decided to join the military so that I could still have that draw, and I wanted to do it. So I thought the reserves was the perfect way to be able to combine both a civilian career and a military one.
And so what is your civilian career, and how does it differ to your time in the military?
So I'm now a neighbourhood response officer. So I work with tenants, signing them up to properties, dealing with antisocial behaviour, domestic violence. And it differs because in the reservists I am a driver. So I will literally drive trucks. It's very different, but it is great. I love the variety that I get from the two roles. At one point, I was going to do a similar role. I used to work in cybersecurity, and I was going to go through and do something similar with the reservists, but actually preferred the difference that I had come the weekend. It wasn't then like going to work. It was doing something different, which is what I enjoyed.
And actually, being a driver is something that you were really interested in doing, isn't it? This career has afforded you all sorts of qualifications in that. Is that right?
Yeah, it has. So it's given me my C+E, which I wouldn't have been able to get if not. When I was a young child, my dad used to drive lorries. Used to drive them all over Europe, and I was really jealous and I really wanted to do it, and he told me, no, there's no career in it, don't go and do that. So when I see that I could do it with the military, I thought, oh, fantastic, I can get and do that and actually gain something else out of it.
And Catherine, WO2 Catherine Robinson, just tell us your story about joining up. You've been a little longer in the services than the other two, I think.
That's right, Claire. So I decided to join the regular army when I was just turned 19 years of age. I finished secondary school, did a couple of years in further education in college. No one in my family or even my extended family were members of the armed forces across all three services. So I didn't really have a link into the army through personal experiences, through family relatives. What really got me interested at the young age of 13 to 14, whilst I was in education, I joined the Army Cadets. and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I like the challenges of it, the different aspects to learning new skills that the Army can offer. And that certainly planted the seed of a career choice at a very young age, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'd always wanted to go into a public service, public sector, and I had a choice of pursuing one of two careers in my mind. It was the Army or the police. But what attracted me more to the Army was what I experienced through the Army cadets, and also the possibilities that he could offer, travel, the diversity of being in the Army, the complexities of working in different roles, not only in the UK, across the world. And yeah, initially I decided to join for 3 years and then go on to university afterwards. And 24 years later, I'm still here, which is a testament, I think, to how much I've thoroughly enjoyed my career and continue to still enjoy what I do.
And in fact, you're actually looking at staying on longer, aren't you?
That's correct, Claire, yes. So I've done a full career, coming up to 24 years, but I've obviously been offered a continuance contract to do an additional 6 years under the Senior Soldier Continuity Post contract. So I complete that, it would have been a 30-year career in the regular Army. And I wouldn't have pursued that if I still don't enjoy what I do.
And for you working in the Royal Logistic Corps, what exactly is the job that you do within that?
So my trade is driver trade, and I joined as a driver because when we deploy on operations and on exercises, we're out and about, we're seeing the land, we're seeing the country, we're seeing the area that we're operating in. So that certainly allowed me to get out of the barracks and away from the exercise area to see a little bit more of the country. But within the Royal Logistic Corps, there are many different roles that you can undertake. Not just only your primary role, there are certainly different opportunities if the desire is there and the keenness to want to explore different roles that you can take on.
And I'd just like to touch on with all of you actually about this coming into what is a very male-dominated environment, really.
I think there's definitely, especially in my unit, there's less females than males, but those of us that are in the unit, we're all quite strong-willed, and you know that you're outnumbered. So when you're going into an exercise or anything like that, there's always that bit where maybe you feel you've got to push yourself a little bit more to prove that you're just as good as the guys. But in all honesty, most of them now, that there's probably not what they used to be in terms of the stereotypes around it. So it's actually not too bad. I think the biggest issue we find is because you're always separated on camps, obviously, in reservists. I don't know what it's like for the regulars. I know sometimes they've got mixed blocks, but we have, you'll very often find you'll be on training, and my basic training, there was two, I was the only female going through my alpha, my first part of my training. And I would be like, well, when are we doing anything? And all the guys would be there, and I'd be like, well, I'll go and find someone on camp. And I was the only one that hadn't been told, because the males would get told because the male instructors can go into the blocks, whereas they can't come into the female blocks. So I'd just be sat there twiddling my thumbs like, well, so there's a bit of a breakdown in communication that way, but that's more of a sort of protecting you from not letting everyone in the blocks kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I perhaps can bring this up with you, Catherine, because obviously you have been in the military for longer than the others, 24 years. You must have seen massive changes over the course of that time.
I'm quite fortunate, Claire, that being in the Royal Logistic Corps, we have a high ratio of female soldiers. We're compared to other cap badges and certainly armoured cap badges, that there are a lot less. So throughout my entire career, all my workplaces, I've always had a lot of females incorporated within the working environment, within the offices or the vehicle hangar. It's just been part and parcel of the daily job that gender-wise has been quite a healthy mix. But I have been attached to units and certainly my days in Northern Ireland and operations, where I have been probably one of the only females deployed with an infantry unit. And even back then, there's always accommodations made to make sure that being a female soldier integrated and working alongside the men, that there are allowances for, let's say, ablutions, field showers, and accommodation. Privacy has always not been an issue throughout my career. I certainly haven't been in a situation where I've been the only female and been stuck of what to do with regards to, let's say, using a shower facility. It's been quite an interesting part of my career, with all the CAP badges I've worked with, that they've been quite accommodating and understanding. And
you've always felt that you've been treated equally?
I have, yes, yeah, absolutely. It goes, you're there to do a job, you're there to do a role, you're there to work alongside people and contribute to the team. And ultimately, it's all about what you can deliver with achieving whatever goal that lays ahead of you. And if you're part of that team and you add value and expertise, then that's the most important thing, is working together alongside your male counterparts, and it's what you deliver rather than your gender, really.
Have you always felt that you have been treated equally, Stacey?
I think so, yeah. I think a lot of it is more what you put around it yourself rather than how you're treated. I think a big part of that is shown from recently. The fitness tests have moved from being different for males and females to they're now the same, which I think is actually a good step in the right direction. We're doing the same job, so why should we not be able to do the same tests as the males?
And I know that the military demands a lot of its personnel. When it comes to friends and family life, how difficult is that? How difficult is it to keep up with everyone?
So being in the reserves, I think there's a lot more juggling involved, with the fact of you are away a lot in terms of almost every other weekend, then you'll go on exercises and stuff like that. So alongside your normal civilian role, you've got to be able to manage your social life and your family's expectations of when they want to see you as well. So it can be difficult in terms of you want to put everything in. I'm someone that wants to, if I'm doing something, I'm doing it wholeheartedly. So it can be difficult, but the Army's quite good in terms of they do understand that as well. It's more you want to be able to put more and more time in. And but in terms of juggling it, it's just managing really, which is something that the Army teaches you how to do as well. So that's a bonus.
And for you, Cass, what have been your biggest challenges, do you think, within the military?
Biggest challenge, probably the physical side of it, because I'm only short. I really struggle with the tabbing. But yeah, you just got to keep doing it, put the effort in, and the PTIs will be through.
Let me go to Catherine. With your years of experience, I think you can probably tell us about the biggest challenge that you face. You've got quite a number of years to pick from, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of challenges, and I think some of my best results have probably been when I've been challenged, when you're taken out of your comfort zone, and it goes back to the ethos, fail, learn, win, being allowed to develop and make mistakes, challenge yourself, and then produce the results in a controlled environment. One of the challenges I can think off the top of my mind is when I was a junior NCO, a Lance Corporal. One of my goals was to be an instructor in a Phase 1 training establishment when I reached the rank of Corporal. So the lead up for me getting to that stage where I could deliver training to recruits was spanned over 18 months, 12 to 18 months for preparation, attending courses, gaining instructional qualifications, and also being selected to be an instructor at the forefront of the Army, delivering basic training in a Phase 1 establishment. So putting myself under pressure alongside my job within the regiment, my day job, taking on additional challenges with regards to all these courses, but also put myself under the microscope to make sure that I passed these courses. And one quite important one was the Military Skills Instructor Cadre course, which was the yay or nay whether I was going to go on to be an instructor. So it was self-induced pressure, but it was pressure with a goal, an ultimate goal at the end of it. So it's all about taking yourself out of your comfort zone, but understanding that you're doing it for a reason, and challenging yourself. Yes, you will hit speed bumps, but it's getting over them and getting to the end stage, the end result. And ultimately, I achieved the assignment to work at Army Training Regiment Pirbright, which was where I passed out as a recruit. So to go full circle and be through the other side of the looking glass, deliver training, for me was a really good sense of achievement. And had I had not of the support of my regiment, the soldiers around me and my chain of command, then it would have been a lot more of a challenge.
Stacey, have you found yourself in situations where you've been out of your comfort zone?
I think always, to be honest. It's very much a case of on Friday nights you've got to be able to take off what you've been doing all week and what you've been working on, get there on a Friday, and it's all completely different, and you're definitely, I find that I'm always thrown out of my comfort zone, but I think that's a good thing. I think like Catherine said, you operate at your best sometimes when you're in that position, because you know what you've got to do, you're trained in what you've got to do. But when it's, from my point of view, when I'm not doing something day in, day out, it's almost like you've got to rack your brain for where that information is stored to be able to put it into practice for that exercise that you're on. But I quite like that, and that's what I like about the Army. I love that challenge that it gives me, and that little bit of butterflies that I get in my belly when I'm like, what's happening? What have I got to do here? And I like that. That's what I like. It keeps me coming back every week.
Cass, have you thought of any situations where you've been perhaps out of your comfort zone?
I think I was most out of my comfort zone when I went through training. I think because I've worked as well, and it's changed a lot since when I went through. You get a lot more information through recruitment. When I went through phase, it was really quick as well, and yeah, I had no idea what I was in for. So started going on exercises. You have to go down on rifle with all that weight in your back. And the third exercise for me to be able to get up on my own. I was a huge shock to the system. It's like diving in ice of cold water. It's just like, what do I do? But you get used to it and you get through it, and it was fun. So I didn't really have any idea what you'd be doing on exercise or what was expected of you. So really out of my hand.
We're having this discussion because this is we're celebrating or marking International Women's Day. What does it mean to you?
I think it's just celebrating how far we've come, over the decades, and even back to the early part of the 19th century. When you look at history as a map, how far we've come, from going from getting a vote to women being allowed to join the armed forces, the roles that have been open to women, certainly within my service, within the Army. That's just expanded massively, even over the past few years. And the transparency of the pay as well. There is no pay gap within the armed forces. You can Google the pay grades and you can see for yourself that it's completely transparent and there's no competition when it comes to gender. But it's also celebrating the balance as well within the armed forces, that it isn't all male dominated. There's a lot that the female gender brings to the table with regards to the views, perception, experience, and just having that balanced approach within an organisation and taking strengths from each individual person. So the question itself is huge. It's celebrating how far we've come and how we continue to move forward as well, and other avenues that may open in 5, 10 or even next year that allow International Women's Day to be celebrated and continue to be celebrated for what we have achieved and what we continue to achieve within all three services.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Stacey, if I turn to you, talking about International Women's Day and what women offer to the armed forces, now all the roles are opened up to women. How significant is that?
I think it's very significant in the fact of, like Catherine said, the army is almost that you don't effectively need International Women's Day. It is always the same. It's across the board. And by now being roles open to everyone, male or female, then it means that they've bridged that last gap. And like I alluded to earlier, that the fitness roles have changed again. They've gone back to a full circle of everyone is the same. Everyone's an equal in terms of gender. So it's very much a case of everyone's accepted. It doesn't matter who you are or where you've come from, to always be equal to the next person, the person in the rank that would be. It's a good thing because you know that you're valued, whether you're male, female, whatever rank, whatever role. You know that you're going to be supported and that it's equal. It doesn't matter what you're doing.
Yeah, Cass, I'd really like to get your thoughts on that as well, about International Women's Day and why it's so important to mark it, really.
Well, International Women's Day for me is women getting the recognition they deserve, because plenty of strong, powerful women throughout history who have been involved in political decisions, education, been military figures, but you just don't help. So nowadays we think women doing things like this is, it's new, it's not something that's been done before, but there have been these women in the past, but because history's not been written by them, you don't get to hear about them. So I think it's good that we're getting the recognition we deserve, and we're learning historical figures who can who inspire us today, know about them. And when it comes to the army, I think men and women, we have different strengths and weaknesses. And if you look at countries where both sexes are involved, they both have more equality in and being involved in the running of the country. Those countries do better. So you apply that to the army, you've got both genders or sexes working together, a better piece of army, especially with the way society is moving. I think the more diverse, the more people you have, like the more different brains you have of them, or different perspectives, the outcome you're going to get.
And the campaign for International Women's Day this year is Choose to Challenge. So it's essentially important to call people out on making sure that there's gender parity. If any of you encountered sexism or bias, would you be happy to raise it? And it's very difficult in the military because of the rank structure. I understand that. So I'm just interested to hear, how would you handle it?
Absolutely. I think it's very important that if it's seen, if it's heard, or if it's reported, then it needs to be called out, because it's unacceptable, certainly now and any time really, for this kind of behaviour to happen. So there's processes in place, informal, which are there to be followed, which are there to be used and there to be adhered to. But it's all about the complainant, the complaint itself, and the person that's affected, that they must be comfortable with the resolution and the outcome. And I think to walk by a situation like that, it's not what the army stands for. So yes, absolutely, I would certainly pursue that situation and make sure there's a resolution in place. It's not something that should be walked by.
Stacey, for you, is the rank structure a problem when it comes to calling people out if there are problems?
There's always a way around it. So if there was an issue with someone in a higher rank than me, then there's always someone that you can go to. So there is that. It could be daunting for someone new coming in, a new recruit. But I work in the recruiting cell for my regiment, and I always make it quite clear to people that if there is any issues with anything, then they can come to me. It's not a case of they feel, oh, I can't talk to you because I'm not going to get into the army because I've said something or anything like that. So I think it is made very clear from the beginning that things aren't right and it won't be tolerated, and that you can't be afraid of the ranks in order to report something.
And Cass, just turn to you finally on that. Is it a problem trying to call people out if they do something inappropriate?
But no, there's no that. But I think a lot of things can be resolved at a low level. It's a minor, maybe a communication barrier, or just not seeing somebody else's perspective. So the processes we in place can usually resolve things at very low level without it, going really high and sometimes getting blown out of all proportion. But obviously, if there is something really serious, then that also works in that process as well. So, but I think a lot when it comes to different genders and so forth is just people not seeing the point of view, and formal chats and work really well in that.
Okay, and let's just finally turn to sort of looking to the future, really. And if I can just go to Stacey, as a reservist, do you think that you plan to stay as a reservist? What does the future hold for you? What are you hoping will happen?
I think I'd like to stay. Life challenges and different careers as my career moves on. Obviously, it's different being a reservist. It's not paying my bills. So if, unfortunately, it has to change because my career has changed and it doesn't allow for that, then that would have to be the sacrifice that I make. But they're very accommodating. We have people that are off on 6-12 month sabbaticals that can come back, and it's nice to know that there's that sort of buffer zone. So if life does take a change, I can always return back. It's not a case of you're gone forever. So it's nice to know that I can take that time that I need to be able to do something and then come back and they'll still be there.
And Catherine, we know that you're signing up for a bit more. What about after the military?
That's a good question, Claire. And I've got a bit of time to think about that. But one thing that the Army has offered me and continues to offer, certainly in this day and age with COVID in the background, is security, financial security, the ability to, get yourself in a position that when you do get out the armed forces, you've got a little bit of money in your pocket, hopefully, and you've got property that's there for you. And I would say, ask me that in probably 5 years' time. Yeah.
And Cass, in comparison, really to Catherine, you've only just joined, but what do you see for your future?
I'd like to do the full 22 years because, like she said, it's job security and it's a great lifestyle. And as I said before, it's like having a second family, and everywhere you go, it's like a bit. I'm always making friends, and military, and it's just a great life. I love it.
Well, thank you very much to all of you for joining us and talking us through what it's like to be in the British military today as a woman.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.